Here at Rotoballer, we like things to get a little hot from time to time. Some may even say a little bit spicy. Hey, if you don't like the heat, get on out of the fire. Here are my top 5 hot takes heading into the 2025 fantasy football season. First up, De'Von Achane finishes as the overall running back 1. Now, this fantasy outcome depends on Achane's ability to stay healthy. It also has a lot to do with Tua Tagovailoa staying healthy and Tyreek Hill basically keeping his mouth shut when Achane is on the field during third down. Last season, it was Saquon Barkley that led all running backs in fantasy points, scoring 355.3 and averaging 22.2 fantasy points per contest. However, in 11 contests in which Tagovailoa was healthy, Achane, he would go on to average 22.6 fantasy points per game, thanks to being targeted on 29% of his routes. Hill, he only wants Achane to get off the field so that he can get more targets, especially considering there are now 111 vacated targets with Jonnu Smith's departure this offseason. Breaking that down a little bit further, the volume amongst pass catchers for this Miami Dolphins team was relatively equal in those 11 games in which Tagovailoa was healthy and suiting up. Now, when we take a look at a healthy Tagovailoa, With a healthy Tagovailoa, say, 15 games, along with some added, With a healthy Tagovailoa for, say, 15 games or even more, with a healthy Tagovailoa, say, 15 games or more, along with some added, with a healthy Tagovailoa there for 15 games more, along with adding some of Smith's work in the passing game, maybe throwing in a 1,000-yard rushing season. He had 907 last season. Achane could very well be on his way to dethroning Barkley as fantasy's top back. Not hot enough? How about DeAndre Swift leads running backs in receptions? Hey, don't laugh now. Since 2021, the only running backs with more receptions than DeAndre Swift's 191 was Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and Aaron Jones. Swift has averaged nearly 48 receptions per contest, and considering Swift has averaged nearly 48 receptions per season, and considering Swift averaged 5.5 targets per game last season, Swift has averaged nearly 48 receptions per season, and considering Swift averaged 5.5 targets per game when he last played for Ben Johnson, this take is plausible. Last season, Achane, he led all running backs with 78 receptions. If Swift were to meet or exceed this mark, he would need to catch 86% of his targets, and assuming he sees a similar target share in which he saw under Ben Johnson previously. Again, a plausible take considering the dual. Again, this is very plausible considering that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery were targeted on 101 occasions a season ago. When Swift achieves this, not only does this cement himself as a premier pass-catching back in the NFL, but it could also lead to one of the top fantasy performances, surpassing his current ADP of RB21. He's heading into When Swift achieves this, not only will this cement himself as a premier pass-catching back in today's game, but it'll also lead to a top fantasy performance, surpassing his current ADP of RB21, trending towards RB1 waters. Let's keep the heat coming here. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley and how he is poised to finish as a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. In just 2 seasons in Tennessee, Ridley has produced 2,033 receiving yards. That is the 18th most in that period of time. He's also averaged 14.3 yards per reception on 140 receptions. Now, while that is impressive, one can't help but wonder, what could have been, considering he has been the 12th most targeted pass catcher, 256, dating back to the start of the 2023 fantasy football campaign. Now, Tennessee Tennessee is expecting to be much improved at the quarterback position, which has to excite Ridley and fantasy managers, considering that he saw a catchable ball on just 67.5% of the 117 targets that he saw last season. Now, while Ridley's 1,017 receiving yards were the 21st most in the league, the 44.4% air yard share, that was the fourth most, and the 1,838 total air yards, that led all wide receivers. For a receiver who averaged 11.8 fantasy points per game and finished as the wide receiver 38, there is plenty of meat still left on the bone. Speaking of the bone, hey, now let's start talking about quarterbacks from week 6 to week 6. Let's transition away from the running backs and let's talk about a quarterback. Let's talk about Drake May being a top 5 fantasy quarterback here in 2025. From week 6 to week 16, Drake May was fantasy football's 12th leading scorer at the quarterback position, averaging 17.5 fantasy points per game. Much of that success that can be attributed to the 309 rushing yards on 35 rushing attempts. Of those 309 rushing yards, May had an explosive run rate of 22.9%, with 56.3% of his yardage coming off of runs 15 yards or greater. Considering the play of the offensive line last season, it was basically out of necessity, but it adds intrigue to May's overall game and raises his floor. New England, they added some pieces there on the offensive line, including Will Campbell, but they also added some playmakers in the passing game, including Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins in free agency, as well as drafting Kyle Williams out of Washington State. Before having his season cut short in Houston, Diggs, he had produced 6 consecutive seasons of 1,000 plus receiving yards and 100 or more receptions in 5 of those 6 seasons. If a quarterback is going to be elite, he needs solid offensive line play. Check. He also needs to be able to make plays with legs. Check. He needs dependable options in the passing game. Check once again, and he also needs a playmaker out of the backfield. The Patriots have that in Trevion Henderson, who averaged 7.6 yards per touch during his final season at Ohio State. Let's keep things moving. Let's talk about a tight end. Let's talk about how David Njoku is going to outperform Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce. This really shouldn't be a hot take. Maybe if you add in he's going to outproduce George Kittle, maybe let's do that. Let's talk about David Njoku outproducing even George Kittle. That puts it into hot take territory. Well, we don't know who's going to be under center for the Browns as of yet. The early projections suggest that Joe Flacco was ahead of Kenny Pickett, Gabriel Dillon. While we don't know who's going to be under center yet for the Browns, early projections have Joe Flacco leading the way, basically because Kenny Pickett, Gabriel Dillon, Shedeur Sanders, they're all hurt right now. Not to mention Deshaun Watson, he's been on the IR for like 2 seasons, it seems. Now, in that case, it is essential to note that Njoku received a 21.7% target share In that case, it is essential to note that Njoku received a 21.7% target share in games in which Flacco played back in 2023, accounting for 24% of the team's total receiving market share and averaging 18.2 fantasy points per game. That was tight end 2, including 4 consecutive top 4 weekly finishes over that period. Only 4 tight ends last season finished among the top 12 at the position at a greater rate than Njoku did, 6 of 10 contests. And that is George Kittle, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, and Mark Andrews, who all finished at tight end 12 or better 64% of the time. Now, it is time to start cooking with the gasoline. And on the menu, how about some flaming dirty bird? Yes, Drake London finishes as the overall... Yes, Drake London finishes as the overall wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Not Jamar Chase, not Justin Jefferson, not even CeeDee Lamb. Last season, while catching passes from a broken down Kirk Cousins and a rookie Michael Penix Jr., Drake London was still the wide receiver 5 in fantasy. I'm not even sure this should be a hot take either, but enough people, they are not talking about Drake London. So I'm going to talk about it. Yeah! London, he saw 14 end zone targets with the London saw 14 end zone targets, which contributed to a league-high 42.4% red zone target share. Since the start of the 2023 season, Since the start of the 2023 season, no receiver has caught more contested catches than London has. Nobody. And in 3 games which Penix was under center, London, he was fed, assuming a 39% target share and a first read target share of 45.1%. In those 3 games, London had 22 receptions for 352 yards, a pair of touchdowns, and averaged 23.1 fantasy points per game. London, he may be a dark horse to finish as a wide receiver 1 overall. London, he may be a dark horse when it comes to the wide receiver 1 overall race, but I really do like his odds, and your odds are going to increase if you head over to Rotoballer today. And your odds, your odds of fantasy success are going to improve by heading over to rotoballer.com today. Hit that subscribe button, and if you're watching this video, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.